Drennan Live is brought to you by Hyundai. The all-new 2022 Hyundai Tucson is here. Question everything. We did. Well, as you know, tonight is the NBA draft, and the Cavs anticipating getting a real good player. We've got Spencer Davies now with us, who, of course, is a senior NBA editor and writer for basketballnews.com, formerly worked for us at Fox Sports Ohio, has other great credentials, Bleacher Report, USA Today, etc. Spencer, good to have you back on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Bruce. Just ready to kick off this NBA draft and get into the offseason.
Well, I couldn't think of anybody better to have talented young writer like you than to predict what's going to happen. Is the obvious going to happen Cunningham, Green, and then the Cavs get Mobley?
It sure sounds like it. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN just tweeted out actually today at around 1 p.m. that Cade Cunningham is definitely going to be the guy to go to Detroit. So in turn, it seems that Jalen Green is pretty locked in with the Houston Rockets, spoke at length about them in his draft media availability, and really seemed to like what Houston has going there and the ability to possibly form a backcourt with Kevin Porter Jr., a former Cav himself. So, you know, the top three in this draft has always kind of shake out to be Cunningham, Green, and Evan Mobley, with the outside chance of Jalen Suggs sneaking in there. But it really does feel like Evan Mobley is going to be the guy for the Cavs at 3 if they stick there.
Do you hear that the Cavs would prefer Green over Mobley? Has that leaked to you or no?
I don't hear any preference to either. I think it is going to depend on who the Rockets ultimately shake out. We'll see how it does shake out because, you know, obviously it's draft season, it's off season, so smoke season's officially here. So, but I think that Evan Mobley is going to be the guy ultimately that ends up falling into the Cavs' lap. And what an interesting fit this is. A young man out of USC who is a 7-footer. He's a little thin around that 215-pound mark, but he's kind of, how they describe him to me, is a unicorn, somebody who's able to do a lot of different things around the floor. He can stretch it. He can play make from the elbows. You can use him with dribble handoffs. And I know that the Cavs are planning to extend Jarrett Allen here in the offseason. Granted that no crazy offer comes his way as a restricted free agent. But I would say that Mobley and Allen could work together if Mobley does display those characteristics of a wing. And it's almost like if he wasn't 7 foot, that Evan Mobley might just be a small forward or a stretch 4 because he just utilizes those abilities that he did in college. And, you know, the shooting stroke's going to need some work done. He didn't quite use that skill too much with the Trojans, but that's something they'll obviously utilize with him in the pros. And defensively, we're not even talking about that, just the ability for him to block shots, but it's the ground that he covers defensively and his length and the way that he crashes the boards. He's just one heck of a prospect, to tell you the truth.
All right, let's put your opinion column hat on. Who's better for the Cavs?
Between Jalen Green and Evan Mobley?
Yes.
I would probably lean Evan Mobley just because we don't know what the Cavaliers' thinking is here as far as, taking another potential guard. Now, Jalen Green is around 6'5". He's probably going to grow into his body around 6'6", maybe even 6'7", depending on what his growth spurt's like. But I will say, I think that, you know, they don't have to rush this thing with Colin Sexton. They have an amazing young guard in Darius Garland who continues to improve and develop. You saw what he did over with Team USA as a part of the select team and even as a part of those exhibitions against the different countries. And then, you know, a lot of things that people don't talk about is Isaac Okoro kind of just being left out of the picture when we're talking about the Cavs' future. 5th overall pick last year. And I don't know if you've seen those videos of him working out over the summer at Cleveland Clinic courts, but looks like he's put on a couple of pounds and also grew a couple inches. So, you're kind of already stacked at that guard position. You're thinking to yourself, does this twin tower thing work with Mobley and Allen in the future? I think it can, just based on their playing styles. I think that Jarrett Allen's more of your cleanup guy, low usage, somebody that's not going to, impede your offense and kind of, draw it in with a vacuum. But with Evan Mobley, this is somebody who probably you're going to see with the ball in his hands on secondary action, someone who's going to find cutters on the baseline, someone who's going to probably face up and do those kind of stretch for things, whereas Allen will probably be more close into the paint. So I think that Evan Mobley is a better fit. Now, if they ended up with Jalen Green, I think that they would still be able to run a 3-guard set with Garland, Sexton, and also Green in there as well, and have Okoro come off the bench. But just speaking from this perspective, I think Mobley's the right guy, especially thinking about when Kevin Love's contract expires in 2 years.
Now, you just said, part of your response, you think it can work, this Twin Tower thing. But the obvious need is a wing guy for the Cavs. Do you think that Altman would contemplate trading down to get multiple first-round picks to address needs rather than take? Because from what I'm understanding, there's quite a drop-off from the top 4 and then the rest of the field, or even these top 3. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I would have to agree with you. In the case of trading down, here's how I look at it. If it was a couple of years ago and they were still in this, this team building process with young talent, then I'd probably agree with, trading back and maybe finding yourself in a position for a Scotty Barnes and maybe a Jonathan Kuminga, just to boast up on those wings. But my perspective here is thinking the Cavs haven't had a draft pick this high since 2014. And this is an ability to get a franchise-changing player. There are a lot of people, including BasketballNews.com's lead draft analyst, Matt Babcock, who think that Evan Mobley could be the best player in this draft period over Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green. And that's just got to do with upside and potential. And I know those are buzzwords, but if you have to take a big swing at number 3 and be able to get a talent like that could potentially change your franchise, then I don't think there's any reason to drop back and add a couple of guys, especially when you know that you have, 3 guys on rookie scale right away that you're still trying to figure out what you're going to do as far as paying them a max, paying them, what they need, because these rookie scale contracts, you can only have so many before somebody ends up having to be out of the picture.
All right, Spencer, you just said, let me put it to you this way. If it's Mobley, it's a no-brainer. Sexton's going nowhere. But let's say that we're all surprised that Houston takes Mobley, or they trade down and Green is there at 3 and the Cavs grab him. Is not a trade of Sexton inevitable? I would wish that it isn't, because I'd love them to be able to persuade him, Sexton, and his ego to become the best 6th man in the NBA off the bench. But you said something interesting in your last response, that you believe it could work with a 3-guard offense.
I do, just because of the way that the NBA is going. It wasn't that long ago that, Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, and Kevin Porter Jr. were all in one lineup together. And Kevin Porter Jr., I know he was listed as 6'4". He's probably more around 6'5", 6'6", when he was in Cleveland. But, they would throw those 3 out there together. They would stagger them in certain ways. There are ways to, give everybody minutes in that. Now, what makes it difficult is that having Isaac Okoro around, he's kind of more like a shooting guard and a small forward himself. So that would obviously, push somebody to the bench. And it's really hard to convince someone like Colin Sexton, who scored, somewhere around 24 points a game last year and shot the ball pretty well, improved in efficiency, improved on his playmaking, and really was the consistent source of offense for this Cavs team to go to the bench. I think that that's a really tough sell. I know that his camp, really wants to get him paid, and rightfully so. I mean, he's going into his 4th year, and this is around the time that he's going to take that leap. And JJ Redick said on his podcast that he voted him as an all-star this past year. So it's really difficult to convince somebody to come off the bench in that manner. Now, staggering is another thing, and figuring out how to allocate minutes that way. That's on JB Bickerstaff, but. I think 3-guard lineups do work in today's NBA, and you see more and more of it.
The consensus opinion, of course, is that these 3. Why isn't Suggs considered in the same category? I thought he was fantastic at Gonzaga. He can shoot from outside. He's a fantastic passer. He's a great quarterback of the offense. He can penetrate. He seems like he can do it all, and he's got good size. He's 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, he is. He is. And it's funny that you mentioned he's the quarterback of the offense because he was an actual quarterback in high school and actually had some offers in college to play. Jalen Suggs, obviously, you saw on the Final Four stage how well he played, the heart that he showed, the ability to get to the cup, to find his teammates. His shooting was a little up and down throughout the collegiate season, but really mature for somebody his age because, a lot of people, think just by hearing him talk that this is a 4-year guy in college, but he is also a freshman coming into the league. He's 20 years old, but he obviously has these characteristics of a winner. He's won at every stage that he's been on, and he even told us at draft media availability, whoever does pass on him, he's going to remember. And that's something that whoever doesn't draft him don't want to see Jalen Suggs at the game. So it's a really interesting question because he's a real floor general. He's a great leader and, again, just mature beyond his years for his age.
Some of your fellow NBA writers have speculated, ones that I have interviewed here on the show and ones that I've just read their stuff, have speculated that Altman's on the hot seat. He's got to get this right. But I got to thinking about it with these top 3 guys, and since the Cavs were lucky enough to get this high of a pick for the first time since you said 2014, how can he miss? How can you blame him if they get Mobley and he's a bust, or Green falls to the Cavs and they get him and he's a bust? How can you blame Altman for that? The consensus opinion around the entire globe is that these 3 guys could be difference makers.
Yeah, no question. No question. And I think that this is what he's been waiting for. The last 3 years have not been fruitful. It was a number 5 pick, a number 5 pick, and a number 8 pick. And I think for where he drafted, I think that the Cavs came away pretty okay. You look at, we already mentioned what Colin Sexton's done in his 3 years. It's probably unfair to pin, these losses on that alone. You look at Darius Garland, who was hurt coming in his first year, played 4 games at Vanderbilt before coming in and, having a little bit of an injury riddled campaign before a second season that he really took a huge step. And we saw that before he got injured in Washington. And then Isaac Okoro, if you talk about an Iron Man, somebody that came in right off the bat, thrown into the fire, no summer league, no off season, had probably about 2-3 weeks to prepare. And boom, he's in the starting lineup for the Cavs and is guarding the toughest players night in and night out. So, of course, the offensive production was going to be a little fluctuating for him, and also trying to figure out how to play with his new teammates. So I think for those 3 where they were picked, I don't see how anyone can fault Kobe Altman for that. Now, if you look at, the previous hire of John Beilein, or if you look at the obvious contract extension of Kevin Love, that has kind of weighed down the Cavs as far as the process of adding assets and adding extra talent to the team, then sure, that's somewhere you can look and criticize. But I feel like as far as the team building aspect goes itself, I feel like the talent has been just fine. And this draft here is going to finally deliver a pick that can change a franchise, can give the team the star that they're looking for. And I'm not saying you can't build it around Darius Garland or can't build it around Colin Sexton or Isaac Okoro, because we don't know yet. These are all guys in their early 20s. Jared Allen's 23 years old. Colin Sexton's 22. Darius Garland, 21. Okoro, 20. So it's like you have to kind of wait to see it branch out a little bit and build some chemistry. And hopefully they stay healthy, because that's been an Achilles heel for them for so long. But I feel like they have some pieces that if they find the guy to put them around down the line 2-3 years, whatever it may be, then they're going to be in pretty good shape.
Last question for you, Spencer. Is there any scenario that Altman could find a deal or deals to move Love, Osman, or Larry Nance Jr., or any combination of the above?
So this is where I'm kind of confused as well myself, because what I heard, at least from people that told me, is that Kobe Altman's in no rush to trade Larry Nance Jr. That's somebody who's on a very team-friendly contract, is one of the few veterans on the team right now that, displays vocal leadership, is somebody that who, when he's on the court, is absolutely a huge defensive difference maker as far as, reading the passing lanes, just getting his hands up, deflections, whatever it may be. somebody that they sorely missed for a good amount of the season last year just because of some really bad luck injuries with his finger. As far as Kevin Love goes, that's a difficult one because if you waive and stretch him, that's $12 million on the books the next 5 years, and you're kind of hampering yourself as far as who you can add via free agency or trade. So I think that there's two options with Kevin Love. I think that one, you either try to figure out a way to pull off a Blake Griffin situation, see if he's willing to leave any money on the table, and then you just eat his salary for this year and next, or you just ride it out, Bruce. You just ride it out for 2 years. There's only a couple seasons left on that contract. I don't think he's going to be a negative influence on the team if he's there on the bench or playing 20 minutes a night, whatever it may be. Fans, if the Cavs end up with Evan Mobley and Kevin Love starting ahead of Mobley, I know there's probably going to be a little bit of impatience with the Cavs fan base, but might be the way it is to start. And then as far as Cedi Osman goes, I'm not sure what they do with Cedi. It was obviously a very disappointing season for him last season, just as far as inconsistencies go, whether that's production-wise, whether that's playing time-wise. But again, he's on a pretty team-friendly contract himself. So if they find takers for that, then sure. But I don't know how quickly they're going to make that move. I do know that Taurean Prince is another very important chip for them, $12 million contract that could easily be a salary clear for somebody if they find a taker for him.
Spencer Davies, senior editor, NBA writer for basketballnews.com. Check out his great work. Thanks, Spencer. We'll call upon you again.
Sure thing, Bruce. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, when we come back, it's time for You Know Who and You Know What.